So in this recording, I'm going to go over Unit 3, Lesson 1, which is our Introduction to Apps. So in this lesson, we're going to look at different applications that have already been designed for us, and we're going to think about kind of like the purpose and the audience of each application, and we're also going to talk about what are the inputs and what are the data, or what are the output data. We're going to talk about what input and output are as well. So there's two things that you'll need to have open, and they're linked in the assignment on Google Classroom. There's a Google Doc that is a worksheet that we'll be filling out together. And there is also the code.org link that should open up to lesson number 1. So again, as an overview, we're going to be examining the basics of an app. So if we could click on continue here, we are greeted with an application called Water Conservation Tips. And what we're going to be doing this first round is discussing how the user interacts with the app, what the overall purpose of this app is, and who is the target audience. And as we talk about this, we're also going to be filling in answers to those questions in the first section here of the application. We will also look at the inputs and outputs as we move on through the lesson here. So let's go back to our water conservation tips application. So basically what we want to do is we just want to play around with this application first and see how it works, how the user interacts with it. So you can see that there's a few different buttons that I can press. There's a Spanish button that'll toggle the language, and I can also click on English to get it back to English. There's a navigation button here, next, and that'll bring us to the next screen here. And if we read through the information here, it'll give us a little bit of education about disposable water bottles, and it'll also ask us to choose the correct water bottle. So in other words, the disposable water bottle, or the indisposable, the refillable bottle. So we've got a glass bottle here, which we can refill, and then we've got a plastic one, which eventually we'll need to throw away. So let's select this glass bottle. And if you have your sound on, it'll play a nice happy noise, and it'll place the water bottle under the faucet. We can also click it again, and it'll fill up with water. If we click on the plastic one, we hear a bad noise, and it gets crossed out because that's the incorrect choice. We can again press on next, and it gives us some more information about conserving water, like setting a timer to take a shower and limiting yourself to 5 minutes. It says to click on the timer. So we do that, and we hear a sound, and then we see this nice little rubber ducky. And then we have this home button, which will again take us home. So now at this point, we can think about these questions. How does the user interact with the app? Well, all throughout this app, I was just clicking buttons and images. So I'm going to say that I interacted with the app as the user with my mouse. So mouse clicks. And I can put on buttons and images. And then we can also think about the purpose of this application. So just like in English class, when you're talking about the purpose of an essay or the purpose of an article, this application has a purpose as well. So in this case, we can say that this application has a purpose of educating or informing the user about, and then we have a clue here in the title, water conservation. And then similarly, just like when we talk in English class about the target audience or the intended audience for a piece, this application also has a target audience. And in this case, we can just say people interested in learning more about water conservation or habits that are good for the environment. Okay, So that's good enough for this first section here. Like I said, we will worry about this section as we revisit this app later on in this recording. But now we're going to go ahead and go to our next application, which is our bird quiz. So you can go ahead and click on Finish here. And now we have our bird quiz. So same thing, we're going to just play around with this application. Go ahead and run it. And we're just going to click the Begin button. And so this appears to be just like a regular quiz application that's all about birds. So it's asking us what bird is the fastest on the land. Let's see, ostrich. So that seems to be a correct because it advanced us. What bird can live the longest? So I know that that's probably a parrot. So I'm going to pick one that I don't think is the right answer and just see what happens. Swan. Okay, so it just says you lose and then you have to just try again. So it takes you back to the home. So let's now try to win. So let's say ostrich is the fastest, parrot lives the longest, a hummingbird can fly backwards, and then if we get them all right, we get a you win screen, and then we can click play again, and that'll take us to our first screen. So now let's go ahead and talk about these 3 questions in relation to this application. So again, the user is interacting with a mouse click. Oops, mouse clicks. And we're clicking pretty much just on buttons. I don't remember clicking on any images. The purpose is, again, to educate the user about birds. And then the target audience is basically anyone who's interested in birds. In learning about birds. Okay, so there's 2 more applications, or actually 3 more applications that we're going to go through, and we're just going to go through the same process, realizing how the user interacts with the app, the overall purpose, and then the target audience. And then we'll go on to talk about inputs and outputs. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, so in this one, we're going to press Run, and we can click to see different colors of options for the flowers. So let's click red, blue. You can see the little swatch changes color here. Okay. And then it looks like there's a button here that we can click to go to the next screen. And it says that we can click on one of the pictures here. So let's click. It'll tell us what each thing does. So the recycling bin can recycle any items. Flower baskets, no trash belongs here. And then trash can, throw away all trash in blue bins. So this kind of tells you what you can put in each of these. And they're trying to just keep their town more beautiful by informing people about this. So let's go ahead and click on the next button. The town is also working on improving the quality of life for the residents with a community garden. If you're interested in volunteering to help weed, plant, or harvest, please stop by the town office. Doesn't appear that we can click on that, so we'll click on home and we're back at home. Okay, so it seems like the purpose of this is to really just kind of inform people who live in Hamilton how to keep their town beautiful. So let's talk about these 3 questions. How does the user interact? Again, we're doing mouse clicks. This time on buttons and images. The purpose is to inform the user how to keep Hamilton beautiful. And then the target audience we can say is residents of Hamilton, and perhaps visitors as well. Okay, so let's move on to our final 2 applications. So we've got Okay, and our next step teaches us how to play Foursquare. So let's click Finish. Okay, so in this one, if we run it, this application is teaching you all about a social game of Foursquare. And it looks like we can click on this button right here for more information. And it's quizzing us, how many players do you think you need to play Foursquare? Well, I'm going to guess 4 because it's called Foursquare. And it says right. What if we click on the wrong answer? Okay, it says not enough. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click on 4 and then click on Next. And then it gives us a bunch of information about how to actually play, including a diagram to break things up and kind of illustrate how to play. And then if we click that button, it'll get us back to the home screen. So there's only 3 screens here. Okay. So for this application, again, mouse clicks, right? So we're going to see a common theme here because we're really just concerned with how to interact with an app with just mouse clicks so far. So in this case, we just had an image. So you can see that you can use images and buttons as buttons, right? You can use images as buttons as well. What's the overall purpose of this app? To teach the user how to play Foursquare. And then the target audience would just be anyone wondering how to play Foursquare. So let's go ahead and click Finish. And for this one, let's run it. And it says click me. So I'm going to click it. And it says that that the caterpillar guy, after exiting the egg, the monarch butterfly begins life as a larva or a caterpillar, and it can be recognized by its distinctive yellow, white, and black bands across the body. Click on Next, and now you're going to click on the little pupa, and the caterpillar encases itself in a cocoon, and it remains that way for about 10 days. We're going to click Next. And now it's emerging as a butterfly, and that's our final screen. If we clicked on the butterfly, it changes to this other image of a butterfly. I think that's all we can click, and then click on Home. All right, so let's go ahead and answer the questions. How does the user interact with the app? Mouse clicks. In this case, we were clicking on images and buttons again. Notice that whenever a programmer in these cases put images to click, there's usually visual aids to let the user know that you can click on it, like a little message that says click me. Otherwise, the user wouldn't really know that it's clickable. So that's important when you're designing your own apps. The purpose of this app is to inform the user about the different stages of life that a monarch butterfly goes through. And the target audience would just be anyone interested in learning about monarch butterflies. Okay, so we've covered all of the applications, all the questions for user interaction, the purpose and the target audience for these applications. Now we're going to go back and talk about input and output. But first I want to talk about what are inputs and outputs. So we also talked a little bit about user interface as well when we were talking about how the user interacts with the app. So let's define these 3 things. And I already have these kind of pre-thought out. So you can pause this video and write out these definitions on your own handout. So the user interface, or UI, is the way a user interacts with a computer to provide information, otherwise called input, or to get information, otherwise called output. So one form of input, let's talk about input, would, for example, be mouse clicking, right? We saw a bunch of mouse clicking that provides input to the computer that you want it to do something. But also, like on your phone, you can use your fingers or a stylus on a touchscreen. You can press keyboards on a keyboard. You can even use your voice to talk to Siri as input. So officially, we can say that input is any information or data supplied to the computer for storage and processing in order to give an output. So the output would be the response. So now let's talk about output. Output is any information or data provided by the computer as a response to input. So you can think as input as like giving something to the computer to reply to, and that reply is the output. So examples of output is like text on the screen, information, audio or text, like when Siri replies back to you, she can talk back to you, or she can display text on the screen. You could also think of the position of a character on the screen being output as well. So if you're playing a game and you're pressing buttons on your controller or on your keyboard, the character might move, right? So the position of the character on the screen would be the output or the response to you pressing those buttons. So now we're going to think about what are the inputs and outputs of each of these applications. So we're going to go back to code.org. Go ahead and finish that one. And now we're going to be presented with these applications once again. So, for example, one input could be the Spanish button. If I click the Spanish button, the output would be the language of this screen changes, right? Changes to Spanish. Another form of input would be clicking the next button. It will go to the next screen. I can also click on this water bottle and it will move to a new location down here. And I can click it again and we can see or hear something happen, and it should have shown an animation as well, but for some reason it's not working. We do have an animation for clicking the wrong one, right? So the input was clicking on the wrong bottle, the output was putting this red circle saying no. Can click on this next button, and again our output would be going to the next screen. We can also click on the timer, and the output would be changing what we see here. Okay, so let's write down some of that in our notes. So some of the inputs were mouse click on Spanish button. Output was changing, let's put that up there. Changes the language of text on screen. Okay, so we'll just put one example for each of these. It's not important that we put all. Let's talk about the bird quiz. Okay, so bird quiz. We can run this, and if we click on begin, it'll go to the first quiz question. But another interesting one is if we click on the wrong answer, it'll take you to the you lose screen. So let's go ahead and use that as our example. So clicking on the wrong answer, it ends the game and takes you to lose screen. Okay, and then for the next one, our Hamilton Township project. Let's go to that next one. So in this project, if we click on any of these buttons, it'll change it to the corresponding color. So clicking on purple will change this little swatch of color to its matching color. And again, we've got these next buttons that changes screens that pretty much every project has. But I think for our example for this one, we'll use the color buttons. So let's go here, input. So clicking on a color button the output is the color swatch on the screen changes to that color. We got two more here. So let's see, the Foursquare one. Let's go back to that. So if we go to the Foursquare, if we run this and we click on more info, it'll go to the next screen. Another example is if we click on the correct answer, we're told that we are correct. And if we click on the wrong one, we're told that that's not enough. So let's use the correct answer for this one. So the correct answer button results in displaying a message that we are correct. So input would be user clicks on the correct answer. And then the output is a message displays that we are correct. And then our last one, the monarch butterflies application. So let's see. When we go ahead and run this application, we can click on the caterpillar and it goes to the next screen. And in fact, it actually doesn't go to the next screen. This is actually the same screen. It just pops up some elements here. So it reveals this text and it also makes the small caterpillar larger and it hides the smaller caterpillar. So it changes a few things on this screen. To get to the next screen, we actually have to click on the next button. And that will take us to the next screen. And then it'll say click me. And then it'll pop up some new stuff here. And then next will pop up the next screen. You can click on the butterfly, which will change the picture, and then get back to home. So for this example, let's take the next button, because that's something that has commonality across all the applications. There's been some sort of button that we can click to get to the next screen. So let's put click on next button, and then the output is that it navigates to the next screen. Okay, so that's all you have to do for this assignment. Once you have all of this filled out, you can submit it on Google Classroom.